The crisp autumn air greeted me as I stepped out of my car, the familiar scent of freshly fallen leaves filling my lungs. Glancing up at the quaint two-story house where I had spent countless childhood summers, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. Little did I know that this unexpected return to my hometown would unravel a web of deceit that threatened to tear my family apart. "Lenore?" The gruff voice of my grandfather, Gregor, broke the silence. "What in God's name are you doing here?" I mustered a weak smile, trying to mask the turmoil bubbling within me. "It's a long story, Grandpa." His brow furrowed as he studied me intently, those piercing blue eyes seemingly peering into my soul. "Well, you'd better come inside and start talking." As we settled into the living room, the memories of simpler times flooded back, but my mind quickly snapped back to the present, the weight of my recent misfortunes pressing heavily upon me. My voice faltered, the words catching in my throat. "I lost everything, Grandpa." Gregor's expression hardened, his jaw clenching. "What do you mean? You lost everything?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the onslaught of questions. "My business partner in New York. He betrayed me, swindled me out every last penny I had." Gregor's eyes narrowed, his skepticism palpable. "And how exactly did this happen?" As the details spilled forth, each revelation more damning than the last, I could see the disbelief etched across my grandfather's face. The way he looked at me, it was as if he didn't recognize the person sitting before him. "So you're telling me that this snake conned you out of your life savings?" Gregor shook his head, his voice laced with disappointment. "I thought I raised you smarter than that, girl." His words stung like a slap to the face. But I couldn't blame him. The weight of my naivety crushed me, the shame burning hot in my cheeks. "I know, Grandpa. I know." My voice trembled, the tears threatening to spill over. But I swear, I had no idea he was capable of such deceit. Gregor's gaze softened ever so slightly, but the skepticism remained. "Well, you're here now. We'll figure this mess out, one way or another." As he rose from his chair, a heavy silence hung in the air, unspoken questions lingering like ghosts. Little did we know, this was merely the beginning of a much darker truth that would shake the very foundations of our family. The weight of Gregor's words hung heavy in the air as we sat in silence, the ticking of the grandfather clock echoing through the room like a metronome counting down the seconds until the next bombshell dropped. Little did I know, the revelations that followed would shatter what little remained of my trust in those closest to me. Gregor cleared his throat, his expression grave. "Lenore, there's something I need to tell you." I steeled myself, bracing for yet another harsh truth to come crashing down upon me. "You know about the inheritance your grandma left you, right?" he began, his voice low and somber. I nodded, my brow furrowing in confusion. "Of course, you've always taken care of managing it for me." Gregor's jaw clenched, and he averted his gaze as if struggling to find the right words. "That's just it, kid. I haven't been managing it, not for years now." My heart skipped a beat, a knot forming in the pit of my stomach. "What are you saying, Grandpa?" He sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping with the weight of whatever burden he carried. "Your Uncle Hal, he's been handling the finances, and it seems he's been helping himself to more than his fair share." The floor seemed to drop out from beneath me as the weight of his words sank in. Uncle Hal, the man I had looked up to as a child, the one who had always seemed so generous and caring, had been stealing from me all along. How is that possible?" I stammered, my hands trembling. "Why would he do such a thing?" Gregor shook his head, his expression a mix of anger and disappointment. "I don't know, kid. I trusted him, too. Gave him full control over the accounts years ago when my health started failing." The sense of betrayal cut deep, like a knife twisting in my gut. Not only had I been swindled by a business partner, but now it seemed my own flesh and blood had been deceiving me as well. "Do you have any idea how much is missing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Gregor's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "Enough to make my blood boil, that's for damn sure." In that moment, a fire ignited within me, a burning desire for justice and retribution. Uncle Hal had not only stolen from me, but he had violated the sacred trust of family, and for that he would pay dearly. As Gregor laid out the evidence he had uncovered, the suspicious transactions, the lavish purchases, the blatant disregard for our financial well-being, a plan began to take shape in my mind. I would not rest until every last penny was accounted for, and Uncle Hal was held responsible for his despicable actions. With a steely determination etched across my face, I met Gregor's gaze. "Don't worry, Grandpa. We're going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it takes." The sense of betrayal burned like acid, eating away at my insides, as Mom and I pored over the financial records Gregor had uncovered. With each damning transaction, each suspicious investment, the full extent of Uncle Hal's deceit became glaringly apparent. "I can't believe this," Mom muttered, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. How could he do this to his own family? I shook my head, my jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Greed, Mom, pure and simple. The paper trail spoke volumes, painting a vivid picture of Uncle Hal's lavish lifestyle. The luxury cars, the extravagant vacations, the ostentatious home renovations, all funded by the very inheritance meant to secure our family's future. "Look at these investment portfolios," I said, sliding a stack of documents across the table. "He's been gambling our money away on high-risk ventures, chasing get-rich-quick schemes." Mom's eyes widened as she scanned the pages, her expression darkening with each line she read. "This is reckless, irresponsible, unforgivable." A heavy silence fell between us, the weight of Uncle Hal's betrayal hanging thick in the air. We had trusted him implicitly, never suspecting that the very man tasked with safeguarding our legacy was systematically dismantling it from the inside. "We have to stop him," I said, my voice low and resolute. "We have to make him pay for what he's done." Mom's eyes met mine, a steely determination reflecting back at me. "Absolutely, but we need ironclad proof, something he can't weasel his way out of." As we strategized late into the night, the path forward became clear. We would have to set a trap, lure Uncle Hal into a false sense of security, and catch him in the act. It was a risky gambit, but one we were willing to take to ensure justice was served. In the days that followed, we meticulously gathered evidence, documenting every transaction, every financial maneuver Uncle Hal had made. The stack of incriminating paperwork grew thicker with each passing hour, a damning testament to the depths of his greed and deceit. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. We arranged a family dinner under the guise of clearing the air, inviting Uncle Hal under the pretense of reconciliation. Little did he know, we had laid the perfect trap, one that would expose his misdeeds and leave him with nowhere to hide. As he strode through the door, a smarmy grin plastered across his face, I felt a surge of determination coursing through my veins. This was it, the moment we had been waiting for, the opportunity to finally confront the man who had betrayed us all. "Lenore, darling," Uncle Hal exclaimed, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "It's so good to see you." I forced a smile, steeling myself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. "Uncle Hal, we have a lot to discuss." The tension in the air was palpable as we gathered around the table, Uncle Hal's false bravado doing little to mask the unease that radiated from him. It was as if he could sense the trap closing in, but his arrogance blinded him to the truth. "So, what's this all about?" he asked, flashing that smarmy grin that had once charmed so many. "I thought we were here for a nice family dinner." I exchanged a glance with Mom, our resolve steeled by the mountain of evidence we had amassed. This was the moment we had been waiting for, the opportunity to finally confront the man who had betrayed us all. "We know what you've been doing, Hal," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "The embezzlement, the shady investments, the lavish spending, it all stops now." Uncle Hal's face contorted into a mask of feigned confusion, his eyes darting between us like a cornered animal seeking an escape. "I don't know what you're talking about, Lenore. This is preposterous." Mom slid a thick file across the table, the damning paperwork spilling out like a twisted confetti of deceit. "We have proof, Hal. Bank statements, investment portfolios, receipts, all documenting your every move." For a brief moment, Uncle Hal's composure faltered, his mask of indignation slipping ever so slightly. But he quickly regained his footing, his lips curling into a sneer of contempt. "So what? You think you can just accuse me and expect me to roll over?" He spat, his voice dripping with venom. "This is my family's money, and I'll do with it as I see fit." The sheer audacity of his words hit me like a physical blow, the depth of his selfishness and entitlement laying bare for all to see. In that moment, any lingering shred of familial loyalty evaporated, replaced by a burning desire for justice. How dare you? I fired back, my hands balling into fists at my sides. That money was never yours to take. It was meant to secure our future, our legacy, and you've been systematically dismantling it for your own personal gain. Uncle Hal's face twisted into a sneer of contempt, his eyes narrowing into slits of pure hatred. You ungrateful little brat, he snarled. After everything I've done for this family, this is how you repay me? The air seemed to crackle with tension as our voices escalated, the once civil dinner devolving into a bitter showdown of wills. Accusations flew back and forth, each one more scathing than the last, until finally, Uncle Hal's mask of control shattered completely. You want to know the truth? He spat, his voice dripping with venom. I did it all for you, for this pathetic excuse of a family. Everything I've done was to keep us afloat, to maintain the lifestyle we deserve. The sheer audacity of his words left me reeling, the depths of his delusion and self-justification laying bare for all to see. In that moment, I knew there was no reasoning with him, no shred of remorse or redemption to be found. As the din of our confrontation echoed through the room, I caught sight of Gregor's ashen face, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and sorrow. It was then that I realized the true cost of Uncle Hal's betrayal. The rift it had torn through our once close-knit family, the trust that had been shattered beyond repair. But even in the midst of that turmoil, a single thought burned bright within me. Uncle Hal would pay for his actions, no matter what it took. The wheels of justice had been set in motion, and there would be no turning back. The fallout from our explosive confrontation with Uncle Hal was swift and severe. In the days that followed, word of his betrayal spread like wildfire through our small town, igniting a firestorm of gossip and judgment. Some rallied behind us, offering words of support and condemning Uncle Hal's actions. Others, however, remained steadfastly loyal to him, clinging to the facade of success he had so carefully cultivated over the years. How could he do this to his own family? Aunt Peggy lamented, her eyes brimming with tears. After everything we've been through together. Uncle Hal's younger brother, Todd, was less forgiving. That snake always had a talent for charming his way into people's wallets, he spat, his voice laced with contempt. I just never thought he'd stoop so low as to steal from his own blood. As the divisions within our family deepened, the strain became palpable. Thanksgiving dinners were boycotted, Christmas gatherings canceled, the once unbreakable bonds of kinship fraying under the weight of Uncle Hal's deceit. Through it all, I remained resolute, steeling myself against the onslaught of whispers and sideways glances that seemed to follow me wherever I went. The sympathizers, the enablers, the holier-than-thou busybodies who couldn't resist sticking their noses where they didn't belong. Their judgments rolled off me like water off a duck's back. My focus was singular, ensuring Uncle Hal faced the consequences of his actions, no matter what it took. Mom, bless her, was my rock through it all. Don't let them get to you, honey, she'd say, wrapping her arm around me in a reassuring embrace. We're doing the right thing, and that's all that matters. Still, the strain of the whole ordeal began to take its toll. Sleepless nights plagued me, my mind racing with scenarios, contingency plans, and worst-case outcomes. I found myself jumping at every unexpected sound, my nerves frayed to their breaking point. Then, one crisp autumn morning, everything changed. The shrill ring of my phone cut through the silence like a knife, jolting me from a fitful slumber. Gregor's gruff voice crackled through the line, his tone laced with urgency. Lenore, you need to get over here. Now. Without a moment's hesitation, I threw on whatever clothes were within reach and raced over to Gregor's house, my heart pounding in my chest. What I found there would forever alter the course of our quest for justice. Gregor ushered me inside, his face ashen and drawn. It's Hal, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He's gone too far this time. In the living room, a scene of utter chaos greeted me. Furniture lay overturned, picture frames shattered, and in the midst of it all, a chilling message scrawled across the wall in what appeared to be red paint. You'll regret this, you ungrateful brats. A chill ran down my spine as I took in the words, their menacing implications hanging heavy in the air. Uncle Hal had crossed a line, and in that moment, I knew there would be no turning back. As I surveyed the wreckage, a steely resolve settled over me. Uncle Hal had made his move, and now it was our turn to strike back. The gloves were off, and the stakes had just been raised. This was no longer about recouping financial losses. It was about protecting our family, our dignity, and our very lives. Uncle Hal had declared war, and we would answer his challenge with everything we had. The chilling message scrawled across Gregor's wall was a stark reminder that Uncle Hal's depravity knew no bounds. But rather than cowering in fear, it only fueled my determination to bring him to justice, no matter the cost. As Mom and I huddled with Gregor, formulating our next move, a plan began to take shape. A bold, audacious gambit that would require precision timing and nerves of steel. "We need to catch him in the act," I said, my voice low and resolute. "Get him to incriminate himself in a way that can't be denied or twisted." Gregor nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in contemplation. "A sting operation of sorts?" "Exactly," I replied, the pieces falling into place. "We'll lure him in with the promise of a deal, make him think he's getting away with it all. But this time, we'll be the ones holding the cards." The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparation, dotting every I and crossing every T to ensure our plan was airtight. We enlisted the help of a trusted private investigator, arranging for state-of-the-art recording equipment to be installed in Gregor's living room, the very scene of Uncle Hal's unhinged outburst. Finally, the stage was set. A carefully worded message was sent to Uncle Hal, inviting him over to discuss a resolution to our familial conflict. The bait was laid, and all we could do was wait with bated breath. The appointed hour arrived, and with it, the sound of Uncle Hal's car pulling into the driveway. My heart pounded in my chest as Mom and I took our positions, tucked away in the adjacent study with the investigator, monitoring the live audio feed. Uncle Hal sauntered in, his usual cocky swagger on full display. "All right, I'm here," he announced, casting a disdainful glance around the room. "What's this all about?" Gregor cleared his throat, his voice trembling ever so slightly. "Hal, we've been talking, and we think it's time to put all this ugliness behind us." A derisive snort escaped Uncle Hal's lips. "Is that so? And what, pray tell, did you have in mind?" "A settlement," Gregor replied, his words measured and deliberate. "A clean slate, if you will. You return what you've taken, and we can move forward as a family again." A tense silence hung in the air as Uncle Hal mulled over the offer, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Finally, he let out a low chuckle, shaking his head in disbelief. "You really think it's that simple, old man?" he sneered. "That I'd just hand over everything I've worked for, all because you and your ungrateful brats threw a little temper tantrum?" The venom in his words was palpable, his true colors shining through like a neon sign. This was the moment we had been waiting for, the opportunity to catch him in his own web of lies and deceit. "We have proof, Hal," Gregor pressed, his voice steady and unwavering. "Reams of evidence documenting your every move. It's over." Uncle Hal's face contorted into a mask of rage, his composure shattering like a fragile glass. "You stupid old fool," he snarled. "Did you really think you could outsmart me? I've been running circles around you for years." The confession poured forth in a torrent of vitriol, each word more damning than the last. Uncle Hal laid bare the intricate schemes he had woven, the lengths he had gone to fleece our family of our hard-earned legacy. And through it all, the recording captured every sordid detail, preserving his unraveling for posterity. As his tirade finally wound down, Uncle Hal's chest heaved with exertion, his eyes wild and unfocused. It was then that the realization seemed to dawn on him. The trap had been sprung, and he was well and truly caught. A sickly pallor crept across his features as Gregor fixed him with a steely glare. "It's all on tape, Hal," he said, his voice laced with a mixture of triumph and sorrow. Every last word. In that moment, the full weight of Uncle Hal's downfall seemed to crash down upon him, the consequences of his greed and hubris finally catching up to him in spectacular fashion. And as Mom and I emerged from our hiding place, united in our resolve, one thing became abundantly clear. The tides had turned, and justice was finally within our grasp. The incriminating evidence we had gathered, coupled with Uncle Hal's own damning confession, was a devastating blow, but the battle was far from over. We knew that in order to truly achieve justice, we would need to confront him head-on, lay bare his misdeeds for the entire family to witness. And so, with steely determination, we prepared for the ultimate showdown. Gregor, ever the master strategist, devised a plan to lure Uncle Hal to a seemingly innocuous family dinner under the guise of clearing the air. Little did the serpent know we had something far more explosive in store. The appointed evening arrived, and as the rest of our extended family filtered into Gregor's home, the air was thick with tension. Hushed whispers and sideways glances betrayed the undercurrent of suspicion and mistrust that had taken root in the wake of Uncle Hal's transgressions. And then, like a darkened cloud rolling in, he made his entrance, all bravado and false smiles, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. "Ah, there's my loving family," he crowed, spreading his arms wide in a mockery of affection. "I'm so glad we could all come together and put this ugliness behind us." I fought back the urge to spit in his face, my hands clenching into tight fists at my sides. The audacity of the man to waltz in as if he hadn't just been caught red-handed in his own web of lies and deceit. But I held my tongue, exchanging a knowing glance with Mom and Gregor. The time for talk was over. This was the moment we had been waiting for, the chance to expose Uncle Hal's true colors for all to see. As the meal progressed, the tension in the room grew thicker by the minute. Uncle Hal regaled us with story after story, each one more grandiose than the last, his false charm oozing from every pore. It was sickening to watch, this master manipulator at work, and yet the knowledge that his downfall was imminent made it all the more bearable. Finally, as the plates were cleared and the last drops of wine drained from our glasses, Gregor rose to his feet, his gaze fixed squarely on Uncle Hal. "Well, now that we're all here, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. Uncle Hal's bravado faltered for a brief moment, a flicker of unease passing across his features. But he quickly recovered, plastering on that smarmy grin that had once charmed so many. Of course," he replied, waving a dismissive hand. "Let's get it all out in the open, shall we?" Little did he know, we were about to blow his world wide open. With a single nod, Gregor signaled to me, and I reached into my bag, retrieving the damning audio recording that would seal Uncle Hal's fate. As the opening bars of his own voice filled the room, spewing forth a vile litany of confessions and admissions of guilt, a hush fell over the gathered family. Shock and disbelief etched itself onto their faces as the full extent of Uncle Hal's betrayal unfolded before them. And through it all, Uncle Hal remained frozen in place, his complexion growing paler with every passing second as the noose of justice tightened around his neck. When the final damning words had played out, a deafening silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of Uncle Hal's ragged breathing. "Well, Hal?" Gregor's voice cut through the stillness like a knife. "Anything to add?" For once in his miserable life, Uncle Hal seemed well and truly speechless, his mask of control shattered beyond repair. As the weight of his crimes bore down upon him, his eyes darted around the room, desperately seeking an ally, a sympathetic face, but found none. The family that had once rallied behind him had finally seen the truth, and there was no turning back. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of vindication wash over me. The man who had so callously betrayed our trust, our loyalty, our very livelihood, was finally being held accountable. And as the shock and horror gave way to a chorus of condemnation from our gathered loved ones, one thing became abundantly clear. Uncle Hal's reign of deceit and manipulation had finally come to an end. Justice, at long last, had been served. In the aftermath of Uncle Hal's spectacular downfall, a strange calm settled over our family. The storm of anger and betrayal had finally passed, leaving in its wake a sense of resolution and a renewed determination to pick up the pieces and move forward. Of course, the legal ramifications were swift and severe. Uncle Hal found himself facing a litany of charges, from embezzlement and fraud to grand larceny. His once charmed life came crashing down around him, his ill-gotten gains seized and his reputation in tatters. As for the financial restitution, Uncle Hal was forced to liquidate every asset he had acquired through his deceitful schemes. Every last penny was meticulously accounted for and returned to its rightful place, the family's legacy, the inheritance he had so callously plundered. It was a bittersweet victory, to be sure. While the relief of having our hard-earned legacy restored was palpable, the pain of Uncle Hal's betrayal still cut deep. The trust that had once bound our family together had been shattered, and the road to healing would be a long and arduous one. But heal we did, slowly but surely. Gregor, ever the wise patriarch, took the first steps by relinquishing control of the family's finances to a team of professional advisors and trustees. No longer would the temptation of unchecked power lead someone down the path of greed and corruption. "I failed you all," he admitted, his voice heavy with remorse. "I let my pride blind me to the truth, and for that I am deeply sorry." It was a humbling moment, one that resonated deeply with all of us who had been caught in Uncle Hal's web of deception. We had all been guilty of blind trust, of believing that blood ties were thicker than the lure of easy money. But from that collective pain came a hard-won lesson, a renewed commitment to vigilance, to accountability, and to the unwavering pursuit of truth, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable. As for me, the entire ordeal had opened my eyes to a harsh reality, that even those closest to us are capable of unimaginable acts of selfishness and cruelty. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one that ultimately steeled my resolve and sharpened my instincts. In the months that followed, I found myself drawn to the world of financial literacy and advocacy. I saw firsthand how a lack of education and transparency could pave the way for exploitation, and I was determined to do my part in shedding light on these issues. It started small, with workshops and seminars aimed at empowering individuals to take control of their financial futures. But as word spread of my own harrowing experience, the demand for my expertise grew. Before long, I found myself speaking at conferences and events across the country, sharing my story and imparting the hard-won lessons I had learned. It was a calling I had never expected, but one that filled me with a sense of purpose and redemption. And through it all, my family remained by my side, a united front forged in the crucible of Uncle Hal's betrayal. We had emerged from the darkness stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. As I looked back on the tumultuous journey that had brought us to this point, one thing became abundantly clear. While the path to justice had been fraught with pain and heartbreak, the ultimate victory was worth every struggle. Uncle Hal's downfall had not only restored our financial legacy, but had ignited a fire within each of us, a burning desire to live with integrity, to hold ourselves and those around us accountable, and to never again allow the insidious forces of greed and deception to take root. It was a hard-won triumph, but one that would echo through the generations to come, a testament to the enduring power of truth, perseverance, and the unbreakable bonds of family.